10 years ago, a crack comedian was sent to prison by a military court for a crime that they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a massive security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem and no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team. The way this video is coming about is because I have seen the new film, The A-Team, directed by Joe Carnahan, starring Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, Rampage Jackson, and Shelton Copley, released by 20th Century Fox. And I have seen the film, I have done a review of it, but before I did that I realized I wanted to talk a little bit about the A-Team TV show, which about 5 years it went on, and around 82-83 it started and went 87 to around 87-88. So 5 years, decent run, but not long enough for me, but that's how it goes. I wasn't around when I was around, of course. I was born in 1983, but by the time I really noticed anything, it was probably around 7 years old. And when I mean that, I mean comprehending stuff. 7 years old, that would have been around 1990. So the series had been canceled before I even noticed what was going on. But I grew up on the show because my aunt Jane would send me and my family videotapes. See, we had like 2 channels. We had CBS, ABC, technically 4 if you go CBS, ABC, PBS, and then another form of CBS. It was like CBS, so most of the time they had the same shows, but it's like if the news came on, it was different news people, so it was like a different station, but yet not. So we didn't have NBC, which is how the A-Team was put on by that network. Which is strange, because NBC is linked with Universal, and yet the movie is released by 20th Century Fox, so I'm not sure the predicament around that. But most people already know what the show's about. The intro pretty much says it all. You have these 4 soldiers. You had George Peppard as Hannibal Smith, the leader. You have, of course, Mr. T as B.A. Baracus, B.A. for bad attitude. You have Dirk Benedict as the Faceman, Templeton Peck, ladies' man who can get what you need. Great con artist, scammer. And you got H.M. Howling Mad Murdock, played by Dwight Schultz, who is crazy as batshit, but he's also an excellent pilot. And you follow these 4 men, and mainly it's B.A., Hannibal, and Faceman, who are hunted by Lynch, who is a military officer, along with other military officers, because of a crime they didn't commit. They're basically war criminals. Again, like the intro says, back in Vietnam, something went wrong, they were accused of a crime, and now they've been on the run ever since. And of course, week after week, they would always be on the run, and many times they would help out people. Pretty much every episode they would help someone out. Now, it didn't just take place in LA, it took place across the country, it took place in other countries. And granted, they are soldiers of fortune, but there are many times where someone did not have much money, or someone was extremely in trouble, and even though they weren't paid a lot, they're like, you know what, we gotta do it. It's the right thing to do. So these guys have a great moral code as well. Now, the show was created by actually Stephen J. Cannell. Now, that name may sound familiar. What may be even more familiar is that after the show, you see a guy typing, he rips it, doo-doo, Stephen J. Cannell created a couple TV shows, including 21 Jump Street, The Commish, The Great American Hero, Wise Guy, Sew Stockings. So the man knows how to create some TV shows, and of course, my favorite one is the A-Team. Now, like I said, I grew up with the A-Team because my Aunt Jane would send us videotapes of it. And I grew up watching those, enjoying it. Now, granted, the show got many criticisms from, it was not a critical darling. In fact, it was hated by many people. Still considered a joke to this day by many people. But they kind of get it all wrong. I mean, most people complain because of the cartoonish violence. In fact, back in the day, people said it was too violent, which was very strange because no one died. And then that would become the joke later on. Even in the later interview, Stephen J. Cannell said that by a certain point they were kind of in on the joke, and it became more funny for the fact that this crazy stuff happened and no one would die. But it was still a show that you could watch with your family, you could watch with If you're a parent, you could watch with your kids, and vice versa. So it was definitely, in a way, it was a family show. It was a show that, and it was also a guy's show. It was a show that, you know, when you're a little kid, you know, to be a soldier of fortune, you're playing, you know, war back in your little woods if you live out in the country or wherever you're at around your home. And these guys, they were tough guys, they were funny guys, and it was a guy's show. And I know in the first season they got in touch with a character called Amy. And I think after the first season she was dropped, and another character Tanya, was put around season 2. And this TV shows again, not only was it accused of too much violence, but it was also accused of sexism. It was accused of many things, and it was the show does not have a lot of respect, to be honest, and it's sad because, again, I love the show. It's very entertaining, it's very funny. Again, nowadays people look at it as a joke. Oh, come on, no one got hit, no one died. These guys are special forces. The guys are a big commando unit, but yet they never kill anyone. Come on. But would you really think on a TV show in the 80s that they just gunned down hundreds of people? Not really, especially on primetime TV. Even Stephen J. Cannell said the reason he did was because he didn't feel comfortable. And to be honest, I don't really blame him. And it makes him more likable. If they're just people just great in a movie, when you're watching Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, it makes sense because it's in a different world. But here you buy the world they're in, and the fact that these characters don't want to be killers. Maybe if they're after that edge, but even then you can tell, well, they're not killers, and I like that idea. But bottom line, it was a very fun. The best part of the show, not only were the action sequences, which were practical, you had real helicopters, you had real explosions, real stuntmen. Granted, there was a bit of MacGyver in there too, because they all could make, and that was a big thing that people made fun of, even in a skit of Robot Chicken, was the fact that you could get supplies a la MacGyver and build something big for usually the grand finale. But that was fun. It was entertaining. I mean, even the people making it knew it was cartoonish, but it was entertaining. And what's wrong with that? I really don't see what the problem with that is. But my favorite part is definitely the cast. Now, granted, George Peppard, a little bit of history where he was supposed to be the lead of Dynasty, but he got fired because he has a tendency to be, frankly, an asshole, so to speak. And in fact, there was talk that James Coburn would be the lead of George Peppard played. But they didn't hire James Coburn, and they got George Peppard. And the guy seemed like an ass in real life, because you get these stories like Dwight Schultz, who played Murdock. The first time he met George Peppard said, "Nice to meet you, and I'm not a nice man." So, I mean, that's the first words you hear of a guy. So, George Peppard, even later on, he would get into sort of bad relationship with Mr. T, because, frankly, the show was made because of Mr. T, because Rocky III had come out. It was a big success. And so, how about you did something where Mr. T is behind the wheel, so like a fugitive type of show, or some type of action show, but you have Mr. T behind the wheel. And that's how they did it. In fact, it seems that Mr. T didn't even have to audition. Other people did, but not Mr. T, because it was a show for Mr. T. Rocky III was huge. And Mr. T, I mean, the way he looked, tough personality, it made sense. It was the 80s. And hell, it's fucking Mr. T. Why not? But George Peppard, he was a guy, he's done many, many films, classic, films, star of stage and screen, mainly screen. And I guess he just could not get to the fact that, he's the lead, so he felt that he should be, granted he's billed as the lead, but he should be, usually if you go to a magazine cover or he goes somewhere here, they'd always go, "Hey, Mr. T, where's Mr. T? We want Mr. T," and he would get frustrated, and it led to a little bit of animosity, and it's a sad thing that the guy in real life is pretty much an asshole. But he definitely did a good job acting-wise as Hannibal Smith. Dirk Benedict, the strange thing is in the pilot, it was not Dirk Benedict, it was another actor. but he got fired because I think the exact phrase was he was too tall and too young, because these guys are supposed to be Vietnam vets, and the guy that got to play Faceman, the pilot, he was very young. He looked like around Vietnam he would have been in high school. So, of course, Dirk Benedict, of course, had been in Battlestar Galactica, and in fact, in Season 2, if you look at the opening credits, they have a little fun with it, where a Cylon passes by, and he sort of looks at it like, what's that? Like, I thought that was very funny that they did for the intro. I know it starts in Season 2. That was very funny, and the guy seems like a genuinely nice man in interviews, and he was perfect. I mean, he was suave, he was smooth, he was funny, but he wasn't a total ass. He wasn't obnoxious. He was a smooth talker, but yet he was funny.